look around. You know what I see? Losers. I mean, like, folks who have lost stuff. Their homes, their families. And we're facing a threat that could destroy us all.
On this galactic episode of Beyond the Comic Strip, we keep our feet on the ground as we ask, what's Spider-Man Brand New Day about a man with his head in the clouds?
Why would you want to save the galaxy? Because I'm one of the idiots who lives in it!
He did hop to other ones. But what was the problem with Rick Remender's second year on Uncanny X-Force? Finally, we have an early review of Marvel's newest blockbuster, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Life is giving us a chance.
All this and more on Beyond the Comic Strip.
Something bad, a bit of both.
Welcome to Beyond the Comic Strip, a show to provide news and comments on the ever-expanding world of comic books. Stuff like this.
Fan favourite Batgirl writer Gail Simone is leaving Batgirl once again, this time of her own free will, with her latest issue being September's Batgirl Future's End #1. She will be replaced by Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher, who, alongside artist Babs Tarr, will be giving the heroine a makeover. New costume, new outlook, new location, though still within Gotham. The Girls meets Veronica Mars Batgirl will be arriving in October.
I am going to tear everything he cares about away from him. Destroy those who choose to follow him. Corrupt those he loves. Once he has lost everyone and everything he values, I will drive an arrow through his eye.
Fans of the Green Arrow TV series Arrow have a new comic book series to look forward to this October, with Arrow Season 2.5. Obviously taking place between Season 2 and Season 3, the series follows Oliver Queen as he battles against the Church of the Blood to save Starling City. Issue #1 of this digital-first series will arrive in October.
Our Spider-Man Brand New Day. The equivalent of those blind dates you take part in right after a messy divorce. In this case, a divorce caused by the most bizarre form of divorce ever created. Divorce by Devil.
Yes, I doubt anyone is not aware of this by now, but Spider-Man Brand New Day came after the single most controversial story in Spider-Man history, One More Day. In its conclusion, to save the life of the constantly dying Aunt May, Spider-Man and Mary Jane sold their marriage to the devil, and fans continue to scream at the fact 20-something years of Marvel Comics were now scribbled over by a massive twat, also known as Joe Quesada, who has become to Spider-Man fans what Michael Grave is to Doctor Who fans. But don't worry, Joe Quesada pleaded, 2008 will be much better. It'll be a new era in Spider-Man history, one that will not only recapture the feel of classic Spider-Man stories, but take the character in new, exciting directions. That and the fact that now all the satellite Spider-Man series will be cancelled and merged with The Amazing Spider-Man. Yes, that's right. The Amazing Spider-Man will now come out 3 times a month, with a continuous story and a rotating creating team to keep it out on time. That last part, Devil Divorce aside, seemed appealing at first. No longer will we have disconnected Spider-Man stories in multiple series and a lack of communication between the creative teams. Now we would have a single, continuous story with a rotative creative team, known as the Spidey Brain Trust, in order to keep it both fresh and on time. And personally, I like the idea of, if you don't like one writer or artist, that you know a few issues later someone you do like will be returning. But it turned out to be a bit of a double-edged sword. For something like this to work, you need to do it one of 2 ways. Either the 52 way, where multiple writers contribute to a single issue, or the soap opera way, where there's a single uncompromised vision and a writer is assigned to write a story with these particular plot points. And Spider-Man Brand New Day, over the literally 200 plus comics that made it up, did the second one badly. From what I can tell, there was no single uncompromised vision. Individual arcs for what is basically a 3-year-long TV season for the character needed to go somewhere, build upon what has come before, and connect to a much bigger story and purpose for the character, like a bullet hitting a target. Spider-Man Brand New Day has excellent arcs, some god-awful arcs, and a hell of a lot of bland arcs. But it overall comes across as just wildly firing into the air and hoping to hit something. There was just no consistency between any of the subplots, with writers often not picking up on what other writers were writing, leaving those plots to just sort of sit out and wait patiently in a corner until the writer returned to Amazing Spider-Man. The Dragon's Breath plot, for example. During the first arc of Brand New Day, readers were introduced to new villain Mr. Negative, an Asian crime lord whose many weapons included the Dragon's Breath, a biological weapon made out of the blood of whoever you wanted to kill. So if you wanted to kill a whole family, then you take the blood of one member, and hey presto, wipe them all out.
So there's a good excuse not to turn up to a family reunion.
In order to save a hostage, Spider-Man gave him some of his blood, and Mr. Negative took it to make a vial of Dragon's Breath that would kill Spider-Man, and then sat on it for 70 issues. Yes, 70 issues, or 2 years in real time. Remind me why we should be afraid of this guy when he happens to have a weapon that can instantly kill a man and refuses to use it, even after the target screws up his plans numerous times. Because someone like that's not intimidating, they're just a moron. Hell, if you're not convinced there was no plan, just look at Spider-Man's love life during this whole time. We have Nora Winters, a reporter at Frontline who was annoying, Carrie Cooper, a Mary Sue forensic scientist made up of every likable part of Spider-Man's past love interests that was based on Joe Quesada's daughter.
A fact that you don't consider creepy until you remember that Joe Quesada considers himself to be Peter Parker.
Michelle Gonzalez, a psychopath that makes Peter believe he's drunk, then have sex with her, then yell at him for having sex with her, even though she knows Peter believed that he was drunk when he's not. Which didn't make sense in the comic either. And Miss Marvel in her series at the time. Overall, Spider-Man engages with a friends with benefits relationship with Black Cat, the sort that involves you breaking into empty hotel rooms and never taking your masks off. And all this makes Spider-Man look a bit of a player thanks to the writers choosing their favourite love interest and trying to hook the Amazing Spider-Man up with him. And speaking of the Amazing Spider-Man, the most painful evidence that you could use to show how directionless Brand New Day is Spider-Man himself. Think about this. What was Spider-Man trying to achieve in this run? When the series started up back in the Lee Ditko days, Spider-Man was just trying to get through school while taking care of Aunt May. In the Straczynski run, until the other at least, he was trying to make life better for his students. In Brand New Day, and that is strange considering the changes to the supporting cast members' lives. Aunt May, even if her character development under Straczynski was firmly reset by One More Day, at least started another relationship and eventually got married to J.J. Sr. While her spouse's more famous son suffered a heart attack, lost the Daily Bugle and became mayor of New York. Harry Osborn returned to life and was mucked around by his girlfriend, his reporter, his stepbrother, his now pregnant girlfriend again, and became a much more stable figure by the end of it. Flash Thompson became a legless war veteran, a war hero, and Mary Jane's acting career seemed to return to heights not seen since the early noughties. Even classic villains like the Rhino, Spot, Comedian got fantastic revamps that developed their characters and made them far more interesting and even times more threatening villains than they had been beforehand. There were some truly horrible revamps, like the Lizard turning from a Jekyll and Hyde figure into a monster that eats his son and causes people to rape and kill each other. Obviously
something for the kiddies then.
Finally, Craven was brought back to life thanks to the manipulations of his family. But it seemed like everyone else was moving forward in some way and not the main character. The main character pretty much stagnates through the whole run, knowing just he, / the writer, wants to throw some aspect of his life off a particularly tall skyscraper just to see how messy it will be once it hits the ground. And honestly, before I reread these comics before writing the script for this episode, I tried to come up with ways that the character had moved forward in his life since the start of Brand New Day. At the beginning, Peter was sharing a house with Aunt May, had no job, was a fugitive from the law, and had no girlfriend / wife. By the end of Brand New Day, So sharing his home with a psychopath, had no job, was blackballed from working as a photographer, was no longer a fugitive, but still hated by Joe Public, and had a girlfriend as well as friends with benefits. Sure, Peter's private parts were being put to good use by the end of Brand New Day, but in every other respect, bar being hated by parts of the public because that's a staple of the character, he had somehow managed to get himself into a worse position than when he started. This wasn't Peter jumping out of the fire pan into the fire. This was more like Peter jumping out of the frying pan into the fire, then dousing himself in more petrol just for good measure. Yes, you could argue that Spider-Man's personal issues were what made him so popular in the first place. Because it's one thing to look up to a superhero, but a different thing to be actually able to relate to them. But in order to make Spider-Man more relatable, the Spidey Brain Trust spent more time showing off Spider-Man's faults. And this would be fine if at any point he overcame them. Instead, he just does stupid, thoughtless action after thoughtless action in order for the writers to create drama. Let's see. He becomes a paparazzo. He crashes a private funeral to take pictures of the guests for the sole reason that he needs money. Had a drunken, or maybe not drunken, one-night stand. Broke into numerous hotels' rooms to have mask sets with Black Cat. Gets annoyed when the thief yells to help steal his blood back from Mr. Negative, instead sells it to Morbius. Produces fake pictures of J. Jonah Jameson and gets blackballed, and numerous other stupid decisions I'm sure I'm forgetting. The guy comes off less as a relatable hero and more like an idiot like Mr. Negative. A man that has a perfect surefire way of killing him and refuses to use it for 2 years worth of comics. And if you don't think this was the writer's intention, then I refer you to an interview with one of the writers of the run, Joe Kelly, who said when he writes Spider-Man,
I always think of him as in high school, even though he's not. So, whatever girl trouble he's got, it's always the high school version of it in my brain. It may not manifest that way, but that's his reaction. It's always like he's this disaffected man boy, and that's why Nora calls him her man-child. It's because he's not fully equipped to deal with all these romantic slings and arrows, particularly after being in such a long relationship with MJ.
which doesn't fill me with confidence when Spider-Man up until One More Day was at times very mature for someone his age. He did become the man of the house and the one that brought in the money for bills, food, medication for Aunt May's latest heart attack, etc. At the age of 15. Granted, he wouldn't have been in that position if he wasn't a selfish sod in the first place, but it's still some pretty heavy stuff for a 15-year-old to go through. The Spider-Man in Brand New Day, however, is someone that acts like a stereotypical uni student. Selfish, self-centered, and a sex-driven twat that never learns anything, who never develops as a character. When everyone else in the character's life is growing up and changing as radically as they do in Brand New Day, you have to wonder why you care about this guy.
Forget the whole Devil Divorce mess for a moment. Spider-Man Brand New Day, on its own, is an extremely uneven part of Spider-Man history. Saying this storyline is even is a bit like saying Everest is just a hill.
This series, particularly after something that is generally considered as disrespectful to the fans as throwing feces at them, needed a single creative vision in order to win fans that had decided to stay and win back the fans that had left. But what fans got was a nearly directionless mess that, while at times had gems that were still worth checking out because they were excellent pieces of work, created an overall experience that leaves you feeling stagnated and hollow at the end. We of the Avengers are about to undergo some major changes. Starting in October's Thor #1, Thor is going to lose his powers and will be replaced by a woman. Not turn into a woman like some news sources seem to be reporting. No, that stuff happens to Iron Man. Anyway, the upcoming Superior Iron Man #1 sees Iron Man heading over to San Francisco to transfer it into the city of tomorrow, because the word superior works so well for Spider-Man. And finally, the all-new Captain America #1, where his super soldier serum now drained to his body, Captain America hands the mantle over to the Falcon, because Marvel doesn't want to let Steve Rogers have the costume and the name Captain America for longer than 5 minutes these days. Anyway, these new changes start in October. might either fight for truth, justice and the American way, but it turns out Superman is also the superhero most likely to give you a computer virus. According to McCaff, 16.5% of all search results for the hero's name led to bad links, namely sites with viruses and malware decide to nick your passwords and personal information. Now you may be wondering, who cares? But I do, because I have one question, and one question only. Why the hell did giant-sized man thing not make it onto the list?
Remender's Uncanny X-Force is a dark parable about the consequences of killing, both on the spot and preemptively. It takes a cast of well-established and not so well-established characters and puts them through the worst stress tests imaginable. And then it teleports the shark into its stomach and tells it to feed.
No. X-Force is a more militaristic offshoot of the X-Men, one that deals with threats in a way that's a bit more lethal than the X-Men did. Well, before they all decided it was okay to kill people. Sometimes. The modern incarnations started when Cyclops got Wolverine to gather a team of X-Men willing to kill threats to the rapidly dying out mutant race before they wiped them all out. As in the villains, not the X-Men. Eventually though, Cyclops decided that the team's mission was over and disbanded the group. However, Wolverine decided that the X-Force needed to stay around, and so, without anyone's knowledge, gathered together Deadpool, Psylocke, Faramex and Angel/Archangel to continue X-Force's mission, which is around about where Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force series starts.
Now for this argument, I'm going to say that the first year begins with Wolverine the Road to Hell and ends with issue 19 of Uncanny X-Force, while the second year begins with issues 19 and then takes to the serious end of issue 35. Clearly because the Dark Angel saga makes the most logical sense to have a season finale. And this is from the opinion of someone that watches far too much television for his own good.
Anyway, the first year upon rereading comes together remarkably well. From an absolutely shocking opening arc, the series builds up and up with shocks and twists and turns well into the Dark Angel saga, a story that is to the series what stories like The Best of Both Worlds is to Star Trek The Next Generation fans. The moment where everything came together both story wise and production wise. The moment that you generally have no idea what is going to happen next, as everything just gets worse and worse for our heroes until the story reaches an absolutely perfect conclusion. In fact, in my opinion, it is the best X-Men arc since Joss Whedon concluded his run on Astonishing X-Men. Then comes the second year, and yeah, I don't think it holds together quite as well. For starters, we have Uncanny X-Force number 19.1. Essentially a poor backdoor pilot for the Age of Apocalypse series that wasn't produced by the regular creative team of that series, making you wonder, why did they do it? And then there was Otherworld, which isn't a bad story at all. But Greg Tocomini, and I apologize if I say that name wrong, art is horrible in that arc. He has a sketchy, abstract style that should in theory be perfect for the arc, but in practice it's terrible. Half the time this arc comes across as something done by a bad artist in 10 minutes. Not even Dean White, whose colouring work is the unsung hero of the run, can say this art's art. And then there's Final Execution. There are a lot of obvious similarities between Final Execution and the Dark Angel saga. Both arcs end each year. Both are clearly based in some way on classic X-Men story arcs. The Dark Angel saga, the Dark Phoenix saga, Final Execution, Days of Futures Past. Both feature a betrayal from one member of the X-Force and both have emotionally devastating consequences for the members of the team. Problem is, Final Execution doesn't feel quite as emotionally satisfying a conclusion as the Dark Angel saga did. There are shocking moments, sure, but it feels like it came far too early in the series' run. Hell, it needs one to read the Dead arc over in Daniel Way's Deadpool's run to have any idea how they can Sabretooth and Mystique could suddenly know all about the X-Force. Yeah, final execution brings what would have been a far better and more logical conclusion to Dacon's arc than Dacon's Dark Wolverine had. But while the twist as to why Daken attacked Wolverine and co. in this way is brutal and makes sense from the character's history, it never makes sense in terms of this series' story. And then there is Nightcrawler's betrayal. That's not to say you can't empathise with the reasons why the character decides to betray the team, but at the same time you can't feel as invested with the betrayal as you can with Angels back in the Dark Angel saga. You see, Angel has been a part of X-Men since the team's creation, and in the following 48 years, through the character's growth from X-Men recruit to seasoned superhero to Archangel and back, fans have grown to love the character. The character's betrayal and turn to villainy makes sense. It's in keeping with the character's history and feels like a very natural continuation and in some ways conclusion to the 48 years of comics that came before it. Yeah, sure, Nightcrawler has been around for almost as long as Wolverine has. Nightcrawler of this series is from the Age of Apocalypse crossover of the 90s, and as such has been around, on and off, in various comics since then. Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler is a much different character to that of the mainstream Marvel universes. Nightcrawler is commonly seen in the comics as a swashbuckling, wisecracking, deeply religious fellow, someone that makes his demon-like appearance appear less imitating and in some ways friendly. Age of Apocalypse / Uncanny X-Force's Nightcrawler is the complete opposite. He's a brutal warrior that has no time for jokes, and while having some heart as seen in his interactions with McGann during the Otherworld arc and his memories of his world's Iceman during Frozen moment, this Nightcrawler is a douche. A class A douche, whose only reason that he's in the mainstream Marvel universe is the fact that he wants revenge on all those that made his life a living hell. Not many members of the team seem to like him, though not many of the members of the team seem to like each other in a huge amount anyway. He's more motivated by revenge and a sense of greed that stems from that need of revenge than he does of any duty to the team.
In short, I never felt as invested in Nightcrawler's treachery as I did with Angels, and it's mostly because of the fact this was just too early in the series for this sort of thing to happen. And it doesn't really help that the team felt that heartbroken by Nightcrawler's betrayal.
Yes, I'm aware of a lot of what I'm complaining about is stuff that was probably caused by editorial mandate. Remender, to his credit, himself said in an interview that he was originally planning to have the Descendants story arc that started in Uncanny X-Force's Deathlock Nation arc before final execution, noting
of what we've done on Secret Avengers. But I think the Descendant story would have been better in Uncanny X-Force because the story context was established in that book, and that's where Father and the Descendants storyline started. However, Jodie Lee Help, my editor and partner in crime on this book, was let go in a round of layoffs. The company did, and everything was scattered to the wind at that point. Nick Lowe, who took the book over, and I had to really build it back up and figure out the pieces because the way that the order went was very different in my first pass. A lot of stories were recalibrated, and as you can see, some of the fluidity stumbling from issues 20 to 25, while I'm still very proud of those issues, they don't beat it out as well as they should have because they weren't originally in that order. It was originally the Omega Clan, then it was the Descendants, then the Descendants led into the final execution stuff, with a few bridge ideas in there.
And yes, I'm aware that elements of Uncanny X-Force continue into Uncanny Avengers, also written by Remender. But I think at the end of the day, this editorial interference has led to a second season that wasn't as polished as the first, which makes it all the more sad because there was a lot of potential in there for it to be as good, if not better, than the first year. It just never came together.
Does that mean that the second year of Eric Remender's Uncanny X-Force is not worth reading at all? You didn't say that.
Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force was one of those rare titles like Peter David's X-Factor series or Brian Michael Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man that even on a bad day still delivered something vastly superior than other comics. It's just that when compared to each other, one half of Remender's Uncanny X-Force is just better than the other. In Marvel Cinematic Universe news, Entertainment Weekly has released some new information on Avengers Age of Ultron, from set photos to actual plot synopsis. With S.H.I.E.L.D. gone, aside from that lot that have a TV series, the Avengers need a break, and Tony Stark, using his initiative, creates a self-aware, self-teaching AI called Ultron to do their jobs. And as you would expect from any sort of story where this is a plot point, it all goes to hell when Ultron decides that to save the Earth, he must wipe out the human race. Avengers Age of Ultron comes to the big screen May 1st, 2015. And in other Marvel Cinematic Universe news, we now know a bit more about Marvel Studios' release schedule. After 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron and Ant-Man, and 2016's Captain America 3, there will be another 7 films. The first will arrive a couple of months after Cap 3 in 2016, the next 3 in 2017, the following 2 in 2018, and the last one in 2019. But what will they be? We'll find out soon. But right now, let's talk about the latest film in the franchise.
Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is the biggest risk of the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. To the non-comic reading public, these are relatively unknown characters that, as fans will know, have a sort of select niche towards the more cosmic spectrum of comics. And if this film fails, then Marvel would have to rethink their plans to bring more unknown and somewhat obscure characters to the big screen, which fans would like to see. So, does this risk pay off? Yeah, I think so.
Guardians of the Galaxy to me is much like Thor was back in 2011. It features characters that, despite decades of comic reading, I am not hugely fond of or invested in, and over its runtime manages to convince me that there is real mileage in them. The team is given the right amount of time to shine individually, but some clearly shine more than others. The standout character is Chris Pratt's cocky Star-Lord, who the actor plays with just the right amount of confidence and sentiment on occasion. Yes, I know I'm probably supposed to say Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel's Groot were the best ones, and yes, I agree they're well played, with Rocket being as sarcastic as you hope, and Groot being the gentle soul that can kick your ass on occasion. But I wouldn't say they're the breakout characters that Marvel appear to be hoping for, at least not yet. Nor would I say that Zoe Saldana's Gamora and Dave Bautista's Drax are the highlights of their own. Bautista's Drax is enjoyable as this borderline revenge-driven psychopath, but aside from a solid character arc, it doesn't really have much special about him. And Gamora does feel like a lot of the other Marvel heroines, sturdy and determined with a few great lines, but nothing hugely special about them.
However, together, the actors and the characters become more than some of their parts, bouncing off each other in a way that sort of creates a Firefly meets the Avengers sort of product. And I mean that in a good way. The humour and the character interaction is so pitch perfect that by the end of the film you are convinced in the friendship that these characters have developed among each other.
Villain-wise, Ronan the Accuser, played by Lee Pace, and Nebula, played by Karen Gillan, are both the weakest characters of the film. Visually looking threatening and sinister, but suffering from the Marvel Cinematic Universe's ongoing issues of not having strong, well-rounded and interesting villains. The obvious exception being Loki, of course.
Ronan's motivations in the film often feel glanced over. He does mention why he's doing it, but it never totally convinces. It's just sort of, he feels like he wants to wipe out Xandar for basically the sake of it. Because he really agrees on the political party, which yeah, there are people in the world that do that. But it just feels for evil, if that makes sense. As for Nebula, I cannot even think of a single bit of motivation she had at all. And this is something that I kept trying to figure out less than a day after I saw the film. She's a bit of a waste of space, to be honest. Just sort of there to give the villain a henchman, for the sake of giving the villain a henchman.
But the film is clearly Marvel's first attempt to introduce its cosmic brands to a wider audience, and I think what we get in this film works. It's probably the most out there film so far in the franchise, which inevitably means exposition. And in sci-fi, that means bucket loads of exposition, most of it invariably complete nonsense. However, James Gunn does something smart with his exposition in this film. What is there is sped through, but feels natural enough not to intrude on the story, not to mention Gunn gets that the audience are smart enough to work out the gaps that aren't still on screen. You can easily work out who characters like the Nova Corps are without a word of dialogue to tell you they're space cops. But at the same time, Gunn uses the fact this is so far out of reach of the usual settings of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films that it almost becomes irrelevant when put next to them. That's not to say that the typical Marvel flair isn't there, and there aren't some Easter eggs for long-term fans, but at the same time there aren't a lot. However, be aware that I saw this film as a preview screening, so therefore I do not know what is in the post-credits scene.
I'm telling you right now, the two characters you're expecting are nothing more than scenery dressing, and that all, while getting a greater meaning in the bigger context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, really serves as nothing more than a MacGuffin that you've basically seen before. It's sort of the same MacGuffin that you would have seen in, for example, Thor the Dark World.
That said, this does give Gunn more freedom to create a Marvel film that has its own unique stamp on it, creating a fast-paced, action-packed and incredibly funny film that, much like its character work, adds to the aforementioned sci-fi meets the Avengers tone Guardians of the Galaxy has, all while having its own unique quirks that make the film highly memorable even after you have seen it. This is a film with big-scale cosmic action involving worlds in peril and dogfights with spaceships, alongside challenging villains to dance-offs and power ballads.
Overall, I would say Guardians of the Galaxy is safely one of Marvel's top-tier movies. For non-fans of the comics and characters and the Marvel franchise in general, it is a hugely entertaining sci-fi comedy that is completely accessible to anyone. And for comic fans and for fans of these characters and fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general, this is a fresh, bold, new perspective on that universe that successfully proves that there is mileage in this group of characters. I highly recommend anyone that wants to see it, go to see it when it reaches cinemas. You will not be disappointed.
Next time, we look at just why Batman Orion was such a failure. As the Kick-Ass saga comes to an end, we ask which is better, the comic or the film. And Monty Python fans, did you know that John Cleese once co-wrote a Superman comic? All that and more on the next episode of Beyond the Comic Strip.